Making headlines tonight. Housing for disaster affected. President says 5 billion rupees allocated for housing program.
First at 9. This is Other Derana 24/7.
Postal strike. 48-hour token strike disrupts services island-wide. Monica Pinto report. Sri Lanka responds to UN report which criticized country's independence of judiciary. In international headlines tonight, London could lose EU euro clearing role according to a European Union draft law. Panama cuts long-standing diplomatic ties with Taiwan and establishes relations with China. Good evening. This is your primetime news at 9 and I'm Indiveri Amwath. We start off with your top story making news tonight. President Maithripala Sirisena has instructed officials to start a new housing program immediately for the people who lost their residences during the recent disaster. The President gave the directive during a post-disaster progress review meeting at the Presidential Secretariat this morning.
During the discussions, the President said that 5 billion rupees will be allocated to the housing program via the Telecommunication Regulatory Commission. Furthermore, the President stated that the Cabinet has approved a proposal to grant a monthly allowance of 7,500 rupees for 3 months for the people who were affected by the recent disaster to rent houses.
When a hospital or a school is damaged, they should be reconstructed soon. We have to prioritize the use of money. Next up is building houses. District Secretaries should compile lists of priority and we will release money accordingly. Estimates should be made for destroyed resources and institutions, and the other matter is identifying land for resettlement. Issues in identification of land could be resolved through discussions with ministers and parliamentarians. If there is a need to acquire land, expeditious measures should be taken and the Disaster Management Centre should be informed.
Meanwhile, the centenary of the Prisoners' Welfare Society was celebrated at the BMICH in Colombo this afternoon under the patronage of the President.
It has been reported that 43.7% of prisoners arrested in 2015 were imprisoned as they were unable to pay the fine imposed by the court. This is a tragedy. I will discuss with the relevant authorities to implement a program to take a policy decision to stop this.
In the meantime, the software program, Tell the President, was officially handed over to the Presidential Secretariat yesterday. The software program was earlier handled by Sri Lanka Mobitel. The Presidential Secretariat took over the authority of the program to make it more effective. Accordingly, the issues and complaints from the people will be presented to the President in a simple and effective way, while the solutions for the problems will rapidly be provided. Through the program Tell the President, people can present their problems and complaints to the President by submitting their issues by calling the Government Information Centre on 1919 as well as through email and post.
Postal services across the island have been affected owing to the 48-hour token strike launched by the United Postal Trade Unions Front, which commenced last midnight. The union says that the strike will continue as planned.
The token strike carried out by the United Postal Trade Union Front was held in order to request the government to find solutions to 3 main issues. They call a halt to the decision taken by the government to convert colonial buildings owned by the Postal Department in areas of Galle, Kandy and Nuwara. They also request the establishment of their main head office at a building located along Janadipati Mawatha in Fort and find solutions to address issues faced by the Postal Department in relation to the recruitment process brought on by the Circular 6/2006. However, the Department of Postal Services issued a circular today cancelling all leaves of employees as a measure to mitigate operational issues island-wide. Post offices across the island were seen empty, including the Central Postal Exchange located in Colombo.
I think all the trade unions of the Postal Department have joined this trade union action, and we have been successful in doing this, and we have been able to close down all the post offices of the country, numbering into 664 post offices. Reasonable solution is not given to this problem, so we are planning to resort to another trade union action, continuous trade union action from the 26th of June, that the government will listen to us, our demands and our grievances, and solve this problem. So that is why
Postmaster General Rohana Beratne said that all relevant parties will be able to discuss the issue following the two-day token strike.
We are prepared to have a discussion with them on their issues. No, actually, there is only a proposal, but still, I want to tell you that there is no any kind of implementation of that proposal. Just there's a proposal. We had one discussion on that. If you are going to implement this, there should be some kind of agreements, conditions, and many things. So they are highly committed people. In this instance, I think they should have more and more understanding on these issues.
Minister of Postal Services M.H. Abdul Halim says the government has decided to promote main cities of Galle, Kandy and Nuwara as tourist destinations, and colonial buildings will be renovated in order for the government to generate an income.
Postal Department alone can't settle this problem. Some of the decisions made by the government, it won't suit to the postal sector. The government makes some decisions, it won't suit to this department. So that's what this problem has cropped up, and that's what I thought better to make a cabinet paper and to sort out this problem. We'll do that.
Now, with the token strike still in place, the question remains is if a traditional ministry such as the Ministry of Postal Services, together with the trade union, is able to work together to come to a common consensus in order to fulfill the government's ambitious plan to bring in revenue to the country.
Defending the report on the independence of judges and lawyers in Sri Lanka compiled by UN Special Rapporteur Monica Pinto, Sri Lanka's permanent representative in Geneva, Ravinatha R. Singh, says the government has taken various measures to uphold the independence of the judiciary and the legislative system. The response came on the back of the UN Special Rapporteur Monica Pinto tabling the report yesterday, which consisted derogatory statements regarding the Sri Lankan judicial system.
UN Special Rapporteur Juani Mendes and Monica Pinto visited Sri Lanka last year between April 29th and May 7th to assess development and identify challenges related to the use of torture or punishment and to the independence of the justice system. Following the visit, the UN Special Rapporteur Pinto compiled a report to the UN Human Rights Council, highly criticizing Sri Lanka's judiciary. The compiled report was tabled by new Rapporteur Diego Garcia Sayan at the ongoing 35th session of the UNHRC. Defending the derogatory statements, Sri Lanka's permanent representative in Geneva, Ravinath R. Singh, has stated that the government has taken various measures to ensure independence of the judiciary and the legislative system.
In keeping with the government's commitment to transparency and open and inclusive engagement, the Special Rapporteur on Independence of Judges and Lawyers was granted unrestricted and unhindered access to all places she requested to visit. Since the election in January 2015, a number of important steps have been taken by the government to uphold the independence of the judiciary. Prior to the 19th Amendment, the authority to appoint the Chief Justice and other judges of the superior courts vested solely with the President. With the enactment of the 19th Amendment, the Chief Justice and President of the Appeals Court and every other judge of the Supreme Court and Appeals Court can be appointed by the President only upon the approval of the appointments by the Constitutional Council. The Constitutional Council reflects the pluralistic nature of the Sri Lankan society. Additionally, in the discharge of its functions relating to appointments, the Constitutional Council is required to obtain the views of the Chief Justice. The National Unity Government also launched a comprehensive constitutional reform agenda with the aim of reforming the executive presidency, reforming the electoral system and ensuring meaningful power sharing.
Sri Lanka, meanwhile, has also invited several special UN rapporteurs to undertake country visits during the course of this year.
Based on the specific needs of the country and in particular in the context of the ongoing reconciliation processes, we have invited several special procedures to undertake country visits during the course of this year as well.
Deputy Minister of National Policies and Economic Affairs, Dr. Harsha DaSilva, says the construction of the flyover in Rajagiriya has been expedited. As a result, the Deputy Minister emphasizes the project will be completed ahead of schedule by the end of this year.
Deputy Minister of National Policies and Economic Affairs, Dr. Harsha DaSilva, engaged in an observational tour today at the construction site of the flyover in Rajagiriya. The 4.7 billion rupee project is part of an interim solution to the overall traffic solution contained in the megapolis plan. The two-stage project commenced in June 2016 and was scheduled to be concluded in December 2018. However, construction process of the flyover has now been expedited.
As per our previous plan, we were to first complete what we call the Southern Bridge, which runs from Battaramulla to Colombo, so that we can open it for traffic while we are constructing the other one. But now we are constructing both flyovers together. I would like to tell the public that the flyover project that was to conclude in December 2018 will now be over by December this year. The cost will be the same, and we will be able to provide better service to the public.
The Deputy Minister also responded to questions raised by journalists on his recent tour to the US.
We discussed two topics. Firstly, we had discussions with the UNICEF. I agreed to their 4-year plan to allocate $53 million for children in Sri Lanka. We expect to bring it up at the UNICEF board in September. Then we had discussions with the Millennium Challenge Corporation in the US. I would not like to disclose exact figures, but they will be giving hundreds of millions of dollars. It was a very productive tour.
The Sri Lanka Freedom Party Youth Front says that while compiling the new constitution, close attention must be given to areas of national security, sustainable development and separate functioning of provinces. The chairman of the SLFP Youth Front, Shanta Bandara, made these remarks at a media briefing in Colombo today.
The SLFP Youth Front is unwilling to deviate from the concept of a united nation. Prominence must be given to Buddhism. Our stance is that provinces must function separately and laws must be introduced to maintain such. Politics in the country has also lost its standards. We expect that the new constitution will allow good politicians to work for the betterment of the nation. An electoral system with both proportional representation and the system of first past the post should be established. This constitution must also encourage sustainable development. No constitution would serve its purpose if there is no stability with regards to national security.
ජාතික ආරක්ෂාව පිළිබඳ ස්ථාවරත්වයක් නැත්නම් අපි මොන ආණ්ඩුක්‍රම ව්‍යවස්ථා හැදුවත් වැඩක් වෙන්නේ නැහැ.
And we bring you an update of Phase 2 of the Derana Humanitarian Initiative. The series of health camps conducted through the joint initiative of Derana, the Government Medical Officers Association and Sampath Bank continued today, with the latest camp being held in Niagama in Gaul.
A health camp for disaster-affected people was held today at the National Vocational Training Centre in Niagama, Gaul. Sampath Bank joined hands with Derana and the GMOA in conducting the camp, volunteering assistance and supplying all required medicines. The Milano API organization, as well as Sri Lankan expatriates in Cyprus, headed by Sadaham Madura in Limassol, made financial donations to Derana. Meanwhile, Derana conducted a workshop yesterday and today for youth interested in the field of mass media at the Kantale Youth Services Centre in Trincomalee.
The deadline for application submissions to the 2017 GCE Ordinary Level Examination has been set for the 15th of June. Commissioner General of Examinations WMNJ Pushpakumara said that applications submitted after the deadline will not be accepted. The Department of Examinations stated that school applicants should forward their applications to the department via their relevant principals. Private applicants should pay due examination fees to the post office and should send their applications via registered post to the respective addresses. The deadline was initially set for the 31st of May and it was extended to the 15th of June due to adverse weather conditions experienced island-wide. The General Secretary of the Balasana, Venerable Galagodatte Gnanasarathera, has filed a fundamental rights petition at the Supreme Court requesting his arrest be prevented. The OIC of the Organised Crimes Prevention Division and the Attorney General are among those named as respondents in the petition.
The case was filed against Gnanasarathera by the then Homagama magistrate Rangadisa Nayaka for disrupting court proceedings when the case pertaining to the disappearance of journalist Prageet Eknaligoda was taken up at the Court of Appeal. When the cases were taken up, Gnanasarathera did not appear before court during 3 hearings. However, when the case was taken up yesterday, the request made by the State Council for an arrest warrant to apprehend Athera was rejected by the court. Accordingly, the case against Gnanasarathera will be taken up on the 18th, 19th and 20th of July. Filing a fundamental rights petition seeking an order to prevent his arrest, the Thera states that the Organised Crimes Prevention Division, which is conducting an investigation with regards to inciting communal disharmony, is attempting to arrest him without a proper investigation. In his petition, Venerable Gnanasarathera further requests an interim order preventing his arrest until a proper investigation with Attorney General's advice on the matter.
Taking a look at your business stories, Auditor General H.M. Gamini Vijayasinghe alleges that a loss of over 784 million rupees has been incurred to the government by way of the bond auction of March 29, 2016. He made the allegation testifying before the Commission of Inquiry today, probing the controversial Treasury bond issuance of the central bank. Testifying yesterday, the Auditor General said the government incurred a loss of over 889 million rupees due to the bond issuance of February 27, 2015.
Auditor General Gamini Vijayasinghe appeared before the Presidential Commission of Inquiry probing the controversial bond issuance for the second day today. Today, the attention of the Commission was directed towards the Treasury bond auction dated 29th of March 2016. According to the report compiled by the Auditor General, 40 billion rupees worth of bids were offered on the day, while bids worth 142 billion rupees were received during the auction. The tender board, however, accepted bids worth 77 billion rupees, and he highlighted the excess the government accepted was 37.73 billion rupees. Thus, a total loss of over 784 million rupees was incurred to the government by the bond issuance on the 29th of March 2016. Justice Prasanna Jayawardena then questioned Auditor General Vijayasinghe as to other fundraising methods of the Treasury in addition to issuing bonds. In response, Gamini Vijayasinghe highlighted obtaining overdrafts from the Bank of Ceylon and the People's Bank, as well as the tax income, printing money and borrowing from the reserves of the central bank as other means. The Auditor General was then asked by Justice Prasanna Jayawardena whether these methods were practical and prudent. The Auditor General responded that had the tender committee stopped accepting bids at the cut-off rate of what they offered and gone for another bond auction to raise the rest of the requirement, the loss incurred to the government could have been reduced. The attention of the Commission was then drawn to the fact that 60% of the bids offered on the day was given to Perpetual Treasuries Limited and the remaining 40% was divided among the rest of the primary dealers. Auditor General Gamini Vijayasinghe will be further examined by the attorneys representing Perpetual Treasuries and the former Governor of the Central Bank, Arjuna Mahindran, tomorrow.
Before we take a look at your stock market update, we move on to some international business news. The European Union has revealed a draft law to give it the power to move the lucrative euro clearing business out of London and keep it in the EU after Britain leaves the Union in 2019. London currently processes 3/4 of the trade in this financial sector, providing thousands of jobs. But European Commission Vice President said Brexit needed, quote, certain adjustments to our rules, unquote. The law will decide if London will have the right to host the work post-Brexit. London is currently the world leader for the clearing of all types of currency-denominated derivatives, including the euro. And Also in international business news, oil prices edged down today after OPEC reported an increase in its production for May despite a supply cut agreement and said the oil market was rebalancing more slowly than expected. The benchmark Brent crude was 17 cents lower at $48.12 per barrel by midday, reversing gains made earlier in the session when it edged up to $48.67. U.S. light crude was at $45.86 per barrel, down 22 cents. Prices initially nudged higher after the world's top exporter, Saudi Arabia, outlined cuts to customers in July that incurred a reduction of 300,000 barrels per day to Asia. Meanwhile, the U.S. Federal Reserve is widely expected to raise its benchmark interest rate this week due to a tightening labor market and also may provide more detail on its plans to shrink the mammoth bond portfolio it amassed in the economic recovery. The U.S. Central Bank is scheduled to release its decision tomorrow at the conclusion of its two-day policy meeting. The Fed embarked on its first tightening cycle in more than a decade in December 2015. A quarter percentage point interest rate rise tomorrow would be the second nudge upwards this year, following a similar move in March. And the Colombo Stock Exchange equities closed in a mixed note today despite foreign inflows to Premier Blue Chip John Keel's holdings. The ASPI closed at 6,648.40 with a drop of 14.75, while the S&P SL20 index closed at 3,844.35, gaining 4.07 index point. Market turnover was 984 million rupees, with foreign participation accounting for about 34% of activity. Foreign investors became net buyers of 390 million rupees. We now have Imeshi Fernando from the Colombo Stock Exchange for the day's update.
Top 5 gainers of the day were PC House, Amana Takaful, Radiant James International, Waskadu Beach Hotel and Malvata Valley Plantation, while the top 5 losers were Durtons, Not Voting, Central Investments and Finance, Beruvala Resorts, Property Development and Mala and Phipps.
And the Sri Lankan rupee traded slightly weaker today due to importer demand. Rupee forwards were active with spot next forwards trading at 152 rupees and 90 cents per dollar to 95 cents per dollar, weaker from yesterday's close of 152 rupees and 85 cents to 90 cents per dollar. We now take a look at how the Sri Lankan rupee traded against other major currencies during the day. In your sports stories, Sri Lanka went down fighting in a 3-wicket loss to Pakistan last evening in the third game of the ICC Champions Trophy. The Lions bowed out of the tournament after having ignited the hopes of their fans with a brilliant 7-wicket win over India last week.
Sri Lanka, having been put into bat, managed just 236 runs before they were bowled out in 49.2 overs, with Dikwella top scoring with 73. Pakistan seamers, who took all 10 wickets, ripped through the Lions' middle order, picking up 4 wickets for just 7 runs in the mid-overs. In reply, Pakistan got to the target with 5 overs to spare. Even though they lost wickets at regular intervals, Sarfraz Ahmed steadied the ship for Pakistan, scoring a 79 ball 61. Nuwan Pradeep kept the Sri Lankans alive in the game, picking up 3 wickets for 60 runs. Pakistan will now face hosts England in the first semi-final tomorrow, while surprise qualifiers Bangladesh will face India in the second semi-final on Thursday.
Sarfraz getting there with 5.1 overs to spare.
Moving away to women's cricket, Sri Lanka's women's team left earlier today to the UK for the ICC Women's World Cup scheduled later this month.
The women's national team, led by captain Inoka Ranavira, underwent a 5-day residential camp at the recently opened SLC Centre of Excellence in Kandy as part of their preparation for the tournament. The president of Sri Lanka Cricket, Thilanga Sumudipala, speaking at a media briefing yesterday, said that he was quietly confident in this team and added the competitiveness of the team is going to be much better than Sri Lanka has ever seen before. Sumudipala also went on to describe a 3-year development plan for Sri Lanka women's cricket.
4,000 girls have started participating at the introductory level of cricket over the last 8 months, and we have played the under-23 out of that. Then under-23 we are building up to our centers of excellence 4 major teams, premier or a major provincial team. So in the process of we are building our team for this 3-year business plan.
In yet another foreign policy shift, Panama has cut long-standing diplomatic ties with Taiwan and established relations with China instead. While Panama has not given any reason as to why it changed its diplomatic allegiance, there has been growing economic cooperation with China over the past years.
Speaking in a televised address, Panamanian President Juan Carlos Varela said Panama was upgrading its commercial ties with China and establishing full diplomatic links. Panama's government stated that it was severing ties with Taiwan, adding that it recognized only one China, with Taiwan a part of it. In response, Taiwan's Foreign Minister David Lee stated that Taiwan will stop bilateral cooperation and assistance and accused Panama of yielding to China for economic gain. In recent years, China has intensified its economic investment into the Central American country, home of the economically vital Panama Canal.
And as the diplomatic crisis that is shutting off Qatar from several Arab and North American or African countries continues to escalate, Iran, whose ties with Qatar are seen amongst the reasons for the blockade, has remained largely undiscussed until now. Speaking to media in Paris, Qatari Foreign Minister Mohammed bin Abdullah Rahman Al Thani questioned why Qatar was being oppressed if the issue was with Iran.
Still, we have no clue what the main reasons behind all these measures. If the problem is Iran, why those measures being taken against Qatar and not being taken against Iran? It's not about our policy with Iran. Whatever it's related to our foreign policy, it is a subject of the sovereignty of our country. Our foreign policy is being based on our own assessment and our own principles. Anything related to our internal affairs is something no one has the right to discuss or no one has the right to dictate or to impose.
Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan has urged the King of Saudi Arabia to take a leading role in resolving the diplomatic crisis.
It's as if a death penalty decision has been taken for Qatar. Isolating the citizens of a nation is inhumane. Qatar is not a country which supports terrorism. On the contrary, Qatar has shown a most decisive stance alongside Turkey against the terrorist organization Islamic State.
In contrast, Israel has expressed support for land, sea and air blockades imposed against Qatar by Saudi Arabia and other Arab countries.
And now we cross over to our weather center for your update for the next 24 hours.
Hello there. Now, people in the southwestern part of the island as well as in the eastern and Ua provinces and the Hambantota district should brace themselves as for showers and thunder showers over the next 24 hours. Meanwhile, a slight drizzle is likely in the western, Sabragama and central provinces as well as the Gaul, Mathura and Puttlam district. Patiklu, however, is expected to sizzle with temperatures of up to 37 degrees Celsius. That's it from the weather centre, but let's now take a look at the city-by-city forecast.
And that's all on your primetime news from your news center for tonight. But before you go, we'd like to take you to the historic city of Kurunegala, also known as Athogalpura, after the iconic elephant rock that overlooks the city. Have a pleasant evening. Stay safe. Good night.
information 24 hours a day. This is Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Derana 24/7.